Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the Government has no plans to make extradition requests from EU countries subject to the prima facie case requirement. Under the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement, we have robust, streamlined extradition arrangements with Part 1 countries. These safeguard the individual and the process, and they enshrine key domestic legislative protections not previously contained in the European Arrest Warrant Framework decision.
My Lords, will my noble friend confirm that those arrangements with EU countries, otherwise known as Part 1 countries, are no longer fully reciprocated, in that, for example, Germany no longer offers the same facilities in return? And will she confirm that our arrangement with the United States is wholly unbalanced, and that they do not treat us in the same way that we do them? Why is it that we hold justice so cheap that we're willing to send our people abroad without evidence of a prima facie evidence of a case, when other civilised countries sensibly and properly refuse to do the same in reverse?
Well, my noble friend asks a number of questions there, and in terms of his last question, it is not the case that we don't send people abroad without prima facie evidence. The countries that we do not require prima facie evidence from are those EU countries that have signed up to the Convention on Extradition, and those Part 2 countries, which include the US, the Five Eyes, trusted partners.
My Lords, a review of the United Kingdom's extradition arrangements was presented to the Home Secretary on the 30th of September 2011, which said, and I quote, "We have concluded that prima facie case requirement should not be reintroduced in relation to Category 1 territories." Has anything changed since then to make such a conclusion invalid?
No, it hasn't, and in fact there were two reviews that were presented, both from your Lordship's House, both the Baker Review and indeed the one by the Noble Lord, Lord Inglewood.
My Lords, further to the question asked by the Noble Lord, Lord Moylan, could she again come back to the point about the need for total equivalence and reciprocity with all countries? And also, can I ask the Minister, can she tell the House, is there going to be a further parliamentary review of the Extradition Act and the US Extradition Treaty?
Well, my noble friend will know that we do regularly review legislation, and as I just said to him, there was a review in both 2011 and 2015 into our arrangements. And I just might say to him and to the House that prima facie requirement has not existed for any of the Part 1 countries, i.e. the EU member states, or the Part 2 ECE Convention countries for over 30 years. And for the Five Eyes countries in Part 2, it's not existed for nearly 20 years.
Can I thank the Noble Baroness, the Minister, for answering what is a really important question and for confirming, as I understand it, the Government have no plans to amend the Extradition Act 2003. But can I just ask the Noble Baroness, the Minister, just to say a little bit more about what impact leaving the European arrest warrant has had on the numbers of criminals either extradited or subject to possible extradition in the last 18 months or indeed in the months and years to come?
Well, the Noble Lord will of course know that 2021, last year, was of course far from business as usual, given the context of the pandemic, which impacted both the courts and international travel on both sides. As anticipated, the calendar year figures for 2021, which are now out, show a reduction in volumes and relate to arrests in the UK on incoming extradition warrants from the EU, surrenders from the UK to the EU, and outgoing requests made by the UK. If you look at the financial year figures, which of course run from an extra three months to March of this year, it reveals an improving picture. The total number of arrests on incoming warrants from the EU was directly comparable to the previous financial year, and surrenders on incoming warrants were in fact up 30%.
My Lords, following on from earlier questions, I wonder whether the noble lady, the Minister, would confirm that it's still the case that people who are claimed to be guilty of crimes committed in this country can be extradited to the United States under the unbalanced extradition law that we do have with them at the moment. And I wonder whether the noble lady feels that this is a correct way to treat UK citizens when the US government takes the line that wire fraud is involved. It's a faulty concept.
Well, I say to my noble friend that, in fact, we've refused far more extradition cases to the US than they have to us by quite a large margin.
We left the European Union. Our arrangements with Germany stopped. Have we negotiated anything in its replacement?
Well, I think the noble Lord goes quite nicely back to one of my noble friend Lord Moylan's questions about Germany. And Germany is not alone in not extraditing own nationals, but we do have processes in place which completely adjust to that fact. It's nothing new and it's nothing unusual now.
Person in the United Kingdom who is exempt from the extradition provisions?
I know where he's leading. I won't comment on that. I'll get him an answer in writing to that. Yes.